Chop, the original Guillotine League podcast. Everything you need to know to avoid the chopping block. Chop is brought to you by GuillotineLeagues.com. Now, your host, Paul Charchian.
Hello and welcome to Chop, the Guillotine League Podcast. Today I am joined by two of my buddies from Fantasy Life, our rankings guru, Matthew Freedman, and my Fantasy Football Weekly co-host and Fantasy Life analyst, Thor Nystrom. Guys, today we find out if the general public is starting to figure out the nuances of Guillotine Leagues. Freedman, based on your experience, do you think the public gets it yet, or are Guillotine Leagues still so new and so many new people trying it out for the first time that people are still not really picking up on the unique strategies of Guillotine Leagues?
Yeah, I think it's an ecosystem in flux. I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to figure out a lot of the nuances of Guillotine Leagues. And I feel like I can sort of intellectually get it, but that's also different than like putting that in practice while you're in the middle of a draft. So I think people are starting to get some of the basic big picture ideas, but you really kind of only learn it by doing it.
Absolutely. And there's nothing like experience for Guillotine League and going through the process of a season where you learn so much firsthand. A lot of people are brand new to it. And as a reminder, you can play a Guillotine League at GuillotineLeagues.com. 3 ways to play. You can play for free if you just want to dip your toe in the water. You can do that. Join a free public league, GuillotineLeagues.com. You can play for prizes if you'd like, assuming your state allows. And you can play a private league for free at GuillotineLeagues.com. Chop is not just a podcast, guys. As you know, we're also a YouTube channel. You can actually see us now on the Fantasy Life channel. And not to make it all about me, but if you're on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel, you can see my big new framed glasses. Thor, you are a man of great fashion, provided that any particular garment has got big J on it.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you think? What do you think of these right here?
I like those.
Right?
Yeah, that's
right.
Pretty nice. Yeah, I mean, and I dressed up for you today, Charch, as well, as you can see. It's all about rock.
Well, yeah, wearing pants, which we're grateful for. Thank you very much. That is a mainstay of Chop, the Guillotine League podcast. We appreciate that. So today we're going to talk about differences in Guillotine ADP. We've now done a lot of drafts through GuillotineLeagues.com. So we've got some real ADP data to work with versus standard leagues. We're going to look at that delta and decide whether or not the public has got it right or not. We're highlighting over the course of this show six players that are going higher in Guillotine League drafts than normal and 6 players going lower. And Thor, we begin with you. Jacksonville wide receiver Travis Hunter. Tell us about the differential here and whether or not the public has got it right drafting Travis Hunter higher in Guillotine Leagues.
Yeah, Travis Hunter going currently 6 spots higher on the Guillotine ADP than he is the consensus ADP. And I think the Guillotine crowd has this one correct on Travis Hunter. I was one of the in a small group of folks that during the spring was taking Travis Hunter higher in the rookie drafts because I knew that Lee and Cohen, how are you going to use them? And that is firstly on offense. He's going to play both ways, Travis Hunter. But you see in the first depth chart with Travis Hunter listed as the starting wide receiver and a backup cornerback. The only mistake I made in the pre-draft process is I thought it could be flipped, depending on the team that he went to, but that maybe he would play some more cornerback snaps early and then it would be the situational wide receiver. But Lee and Cohen in Jacksonville, they trade up for Travis Hunter. It was with this idea of making him a center point focal piece of the offense right away. I was told that during the pre-draft process, like Lee and Cohen badly wants an offensive difference maker out of that first round pick. We thought that could end up being Ashton Genty if Jacksonville had stayed in the slot they were in. Instead, they got aggressive and they got clever and they moved up with Cleveland to take Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter's game is a perfect complement for Brian Thomas's. Travis Hunter, the ball skills are the thing that really wow you with him. He plays bigger than his 6 foot, 188-pound frame because of the ball skills and also because he has much longer arms than you would think for that frame. People don't realize this. Travis Hunter's wingspan is only 1 inch south of Tetairoa McMillan's. Tetairoa McMillan, the guy that we think of as the huge pterodactyl. Travis Hunter has almost the reach that he does, and Travis Hunter will catch anything that he can touch. right? I mean, speaking to those awesome ball skills, he was a downfield assassin in college. It's also just extremely difficult to stay with him in the intermediate. So you can hit him on the hands, lead him into space. I think Travis Hunter has a huge rookie season, and I think the Guillotine League folks have this one right.
Every rookie always gives me a little bit of pause because even the best rookies almost always start out inconsistently. Justin Jefferson was not a consistent regular, and he's on Hall of Fame pace, consistent regular fantasy producer until about week 6 of his rookie career. That's the part that worries me about every rookie, including Travis Hunter, but love the skill set and love what he does in traffic.
And Charge, if I may, a part of that was Mike Zimmer, right? And the first 2 weeks, the Vikings started Olabisi Johnson over Justin Jefferson because
they did.
It was an old school staff, and it's like, oh, the rookie needs to come in and win the job, and we're going to be deferential to the veteran. To me, that's another data point for Travis Hunter this season. That right away after the draft, Liam Cohen's like, no, we see him firstly as a wide receiver, a weapon that I can use, and then in the first depth chart, that's you put him on the first team. So I just thought I'd mention that.
One quick thing, if I can follow up on that. To Thor's point, it also was the usage for Justin Jefferson. And in the first 2 weeks of the season, they played him in the slot. And then in the third week of the season, when he broke out, he played more on the perimeter. And I think that's also a kind of a question I have for the Jags. Exactly how are they going to use Travis Hunter? Where is he going to line up the most? And then Liam Cohen recently gave an interview in which he was talking about the number of snaps or the percentage of snaps in which they might be thinking about playing Travis Hunter. And he threw 80% as a number out there, which is a really intriguing number because that is exactly the number, the average that your number 2 wide receiver on an NFL team on average runs 80% of your routes. And so it's kind of right in line with what we would see from a typical number 2 wide receiver. And so, the question is, where's he going to be used? How many snaps is he going to play? But if they're lining him up all over the field, if they're really trying to target him on the plays that he's out there, if he's running 80% of the routes, and then if that offense, as we might expect, takes a step forward with the development we see from the quarterback there in that new system with Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator, pulling some of those levers, and the offense kind of gets better than anything that we've seen in the past 4 years with Trevor Lawrence, maybe we really could see a big season.
Freedman, I think you and I are going to be on lockstep on this. We'll find out. I'm very, very optimistic about Cincinnati running back Chase Brown. Guillotine League drafters are taking him higher than standard league drafters. Do they have it right?
Yeah, I think so. He's going almost around higher in Guillotine than he is on a place like ESPN. And I recently put out an article at Fantasy Life where I look at the running backs that I've projected with at least 50 targets this season. The running backs who are targeted consistently, those guys week to week tend to have an elevated floor, not only because of what they get through PPR, but also just because they tend to be 3-down players. So no matter how the game script unfolds, they tend to be on the field. And Chase Brown, I have him projected for, at this point, I think maybe like 60 something targets. He has a really high ceiling. And you look at the 8 games last year that he played without Zach Moss, who is the former starter and who has since been released from the team. Chase Brown had 930 yards and 6 touchdowns on 151 carries, 44 targets. And we have in the utilization report what I think of as the best kind of catch-all metric in the industry, which is the utilization score. And in those 8 games, to close out the year where Chase Brown was the starter, he had a position best 95 utilization score. So I have him right now as the number 11 running back in my rankings. I think he's fairly priced in the market. I think the Guillotine drafters are appropriate to kind of shoot for the upside because he's got the upside, but he's also got that really high week to week floor. And honestly, I might be too low with him at number 11 in my rankings.
I think you are too low. I love it. And I've hit on many of the same talking points, including the utilization score for Chase Brown. It's all about the PPR floor that Chase Brown is going to give your Guillotine League team. And if the catches do materialize the way that they were in the second half of last year, and if they continue to grow here, he could be the household name that his position coach suggested, or was it offensive coordinator suggested that Chase Brown's going to be a household name by the end of the year? I think that's going to be right.
Yeah.
If we think the public's got that one correct. The public has got Brock Bowers going a half round earlier in Guillotine than they do ESPN and Yahoo leagues. And guys, I think they've got it right with Brock Bowers. Sloughing the tight end position is the single most harrowing decision you can make in a Guillotine draft. There simply are not 18 good tight ends. You're staring at a scenario where you enter week 1 with Kyle Pitts or Cade Otton, like tight end 17, tight end 18 as your starting tight end. That is a dangerous spot to be in. If you just want to lock it down with Brock Bowers, I'm listening to that. Most of our listeners know he set the all-time reception record for players at any position last year for rookies. And yes, Ashton Genty's going to siphon off carries, and I've heard this argument, but Genty's also going to provide sustained drives, more trips into the red zone, more touchdown opportunities for every Raider. And Bowers can get he can get 20% more fantasy productive as a sophomore, maybe even just in the touchdown category. Last year, Brock Bowers turned 112 catches into only 5 touchdowns. That number could easily double to 10 this year. There's still room for Bowers to get better. Guys, I believe Brock Bowers, the public's got it right, taking him a half round earlier in Guillotine. What do you think?
I agree. I think that most people, when they look at the tight end landscape right now, they have this top tier of 3. They have Bowers, they have Trey McBride, and then third, they have George Kittle. I think there's maybe a half tier actually between Bowers and Trey McBride. In the projections that we have at Fantasy Life, the projections that I specifically have, and then Dwayne also has his own projections, but I have Bowers at 190 points and I have McBride at 170. And that might not seem like much, but for those guys, if you kind of think of a tier, like Bowers is significantly above them. And so I like the idea of being aggressive at the position, especially because, once you get after tight end 6, tight end 8, it can be really hairy. So just going and getting a beast at the tight end position and locking down that position for the rest of the year.
People bring up the Genty thing, with regards to poo-pooing Brock Bowers a little bit, maybe talking themselves into someone else and touches are going to go to Genty. But the Raiders didn't add another legitimate wide receiver early. I know they got Besh on day 2. Besh going to play some slot, you would think. And then later on, they took the burner, Deontay Thornton. But there wasn't a legitimate dude to add to what was a bad receiving core. It's more or less that, maybe slightly upgraded, but you have majorly upgraded the quarterback position. You have majorly upgraded the running back position. That is going to upgrade the offense. In addition to having Chip Kelly run it, how is that not going to manifest in more point opportunities for Brock Bowers? You're going to have extended drives. So I don't really buy the argument that his targets and receptions will go down in an offensive environment where you will run more plays. You will have more series. But the other thing is, even if maybe slightly it did, very slightly, it's not going to be a lot. They don't have a lot of pass catchers there. But even if it did slightly, you will be around the goal line more often. We didn't get to see the Raiders and Brock Bowers around the goal line a whole heck of a lot last year because of the constitution of the offense. You're going to see that more this year. Brock Bowers will be scoring more touchdowns this year.
All right, Thor, let's stay with you. Minnesota running back Aaron Jones is going higher in Guillotine drafts than he is in standard drafts. Do you think the public is getting it right on Aaron Jones?
I think the consensus is getting it right. I think the Guillotine Leaguers have this one wrong. I would not hop the line for Aaron Jones. I would let someone else at his current sticker price, even the consensus one. I would let somebody else have Aaron Jones in charge. I know that you're with me on this. You and I have been two of the guys beating the drum for this since the trade for Jordan Mason, when the Vikings traded the 49ers for Jordan Mason. This is going to be a split backfield thing. The way that you can think of it is Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery with the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vikings have found their new David Montgomery, who they didn't have last year, in Jordan Mason. That is going to cut down on the touches for Aaron Jones. He's not going to get the meat and potato stuff between the tackles. He also is not going to be running around the goal line anymore. It's one of the explicit reasons the Vikings went to go out and trade for Jordan Mason. Last year, Aaron Jones had 13 carries for -2 yards inside the 5-yard line, inside the opponent's 5-yard line. And the Vikings were the worst rushing team in the NFL, of course, within their opponent's 10-yard line. With the split usage and then the money down, when you're inside the 5, you're inside the 10. Going to Jordan Mason, we know that that's going to happen. That's going to take away a lot of possibility for fantasy points from Aaron Jones. I think because of that, he's a bit overvalued.
Yeah, and the way that we know it, when I talked to Aaron Jones at the Vikings draft party, he told me Jordan Mason's going to get the hard yards, the short stuff, and Aaron Jones has proven through 2 years in Minnesota that he's not that guy. It's going to be Jordan Mason.
Who's your source?
Freedman.
Aaron Jones.
Yeah. And my source is Aaron Jones. I think that's a good source. And by the way, if it turns out that I'm wrong, blame him. Don't blame me.
Aaron Jones.
He's the one who told me that. So this is on him, not me.
O'Connell
says just the reporter on this.
O'Connell said it too. It's 1A, 1B. That's what it is. And we know the work that both of them are going to get, right? I mean, Jones is going to still do his stuff outside the tackles. He's going to do more of the air stuff. And then he's of course going to be on the field for the passing downs. He's really, really good at that stuff. But this also juices the odds for the Vikings that Aaron Jones is healthy down the stretch. It's a guy who takes a lot of nagging injuries. So you're taking work away from him that he's not as good at, and you're giving it to someone who is good at that, but you're also improving the odds that he's healthy down the stretch.
Freedman, let's go to Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson being drafted higher in Guillotine than he is in standard leagues. Does the public have this one right?
I hate to besmirch any of the Guillotine League drafters, but I would say I think they're being really aggressive on Garrett Wilson. And just to give a sense of how the projection process works, I start by looking at the offense in general and then allocate production down from there. And I look at the offense for the Jets. They have a defensive head coach, and defensive head coaches, even though they're not calling plays for the offense, they tend to just have more of an offensive environment that is conservative, slower paced, all of that. And then you look at offensive coordinator Tanner Nystrom, who has never called plays before in the NFL.
Yeah.
That combination already is bad. And then you add Justin Fields, who could be better as a passer. He's gotten better as a passer every year of his career, but still, even if he improves a little bit, he's not going to be lighting it up. So you have what I think top down is going to be a pretty inefficient, slow, and run-heavy offense. You put all that together, and I think even as talented as Garrett Wilson is, I think one of the best, like we'll say top 12 wide receivers in the league just in terms of talent, but because of the environment that he is in, I think week to week, he is going to be really inconsistent. And so I think he has an insecure floor. And then I think his ceiling is also going to be capped because I don't think he's going to have those big explosive weeks where that will help him get up to like 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 yards. And you want to have that upside because even though in Guillotine week to week, you want that high floor, you're playing for a championship. And, week 17, you need to have basically like 3 top 10 wide receivers on your team. And I don't think Garrett Wilson really has that in his range of outcomes. So I put all that together and say, I don't see how there's a great chance Garrett Wilson outperforms his ADP. And if I'm having to draft a guy on that round 3, round 4 borderline, I want him to have a chance of outperforming ADP.
Couldn't agree more. I think the public's got it wrong on Jones, Garrett Wilson, and this guy, Denver running back RJ Harvey. This one, it potentially really wrong. Look at that massive differential you see on your screen, 34 spots higher in ESPN drafts. That is not where RJ Harvey should be going right now. On Wednesday, the Broncos revealed that first depth chart, and Sean Payton has got, because he can't stop himself from the stupid gamesmanship, right? Payton loves this stuff. He buries RJ Harvey 5th spot on the depth chart at the run back position. That doesn't mean much, but what does? Thor and Freedman. Can we agree Alvin Kamara is on a borderline Hall of Fame pace for his career to this point?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. For Sean Payton, it took Alvin Kamara 5 weeks to get more than 7 carries in a game. Yeah. 5 weeks. In the world of Guillotine, those first 5 weeks, I'm just trying to stay alive. I can't do that on less than 7 carries a game. And that's when he had Alvin Kamara on his team. RJ Harvey could be very good. He's probably not going to be as good as Alvin Kamara was. And here's the other thing. With J.K. Dobbins as your probable week 1 starter, he could hold that job for a long time, either just through sheer talent, veteran dependency, but also this, and nobody's talking about this with Dobbins. Last year in Denver, Javonte Williams was Pro Football Focus's 8th best pass blocking running back, and he's gone in Dallas. Last year, J.K. Dobbins, 4th best pass blocking back. So from a pass blocking standpoint, I think Dobbins, who's going to be the starter anyway, could hold that job because he's going to keep Bo Nix clean. And let's remember, J.K. Dobbins, before he sprained his MCL in week 12, he was the Vegas odds-on candidate to win Comeback Player of the Year at the point of his injury. He had looked pretty darn good at that point, averaging 72 rushing yards per game and almost a full touchdown per game. Now, in time, RJ Harvey may turn out to be the best back in the Denver backfield. But when? And is your Guillotine League team going to be alive for that? I don't think that's going to be the case here. Freedman, what do you think?
Yeah, 100% agree. And I'll just extend this a little bit and say, I think a number of the rookie running backs, early drafters are, I won't say they're too high on them, but they're aggressively high on them. They're drafting them according to their upside and not so much on the high downside or the high floor that they have. So I'd say RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson, a number of the rookie running backs might be drafted a little bit too high, or to phrase it positively, drafted very aggressively with their upside
optimistically.
in mind. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You got it, Freeman. We all want the rookies to take over middling backfields really, really fast, and coaches almost always go slower than we want them to at the beginning of the year. All right, let's transition now to players that are going noticeably lower in Guillotine Leagues. We've got 6 players for you that Guillotine League drafters are taking later. We'll tell you if the public is right or wrong. But before we do that, I'll mention you can get all of my Guillotine-specific rankings at fantasylife.com. And Freeman, Thor, what could people do if they wanted to save 20% off the price of Fantasy Life Plus with all of our tools and rankings?
Use code Thor, THOR.
No, boo. Code Freedman.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that, Freedman? Should we go Freedman? Okay. I'll let the users decide. The listeners, you can decide which one you want to use. FantasyLife.com, promo code Thor or Freedman. All right, Thor. Who is the first player you want to talk about that's going noticeably lower in Guillotine League drafts than he is in standard drafts?
I'm going to bring up Jaden Blue first. You just brought up Javonte Williams there a little bit ago. So let's stick in the Dallas backfield. Now, Jaden Blue is only going 2 spots lower on Guillotine against consensus. So it's not enormous, but I think that the Guillotine Leaguers have it right. And honestly, I would be even more aggressive in fading Jaydon Blue. I'll just say it. I don't think Jaydon Blue is a good player. And you know who agrees with me? The Texas coaching staff. Jaden Blue had the Longhorns I'm talking about. Jaden Blue had a perfect opportunity last year where Texas had this 5-star ballyhooed running back named CJ Baxter, who was going to be RB1. CJ Baxter tore his ACL in August. So it's like perfect opportunity for Jaden Blue. This is his NFL audition. He's going to be RB1. They couldn't keep him on the field. They couldn't trust him. He didn't have enough of a utility. So he was quickly bypassed by an unknown named Travius Wisner. And he held Jaden Blue off all season. They used Jaden Blue situationally, and Quinn Ewers would dump it to him. So people think Jaden Blue's a good receiver. Jaden Blue, people think he's like some crazy good athlete. He had a 63rd percentile athletic composite at 5'9", 195. That's pretty close to the threshold of you're not a good enough athlete at your size to play in the NFL. He has the straight line speed. Some of the other stuff is kind of meh with it. I don't think he's super skilled. I don't think he has good vision. There was a report that he wasn't working hard in camp. That's not my report. You just saw that, whatever. This is a guy who right now is RB 48 in consensus. And there's been I saw recently someone said that he was getting some first team looks in camp. I would caution everyone out there, don't listen to that. I think that this is going to be Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders predominantly. I think Jaydon Blue should be more concerned about merely making the roster. And I'm going to bring people in behind the curtains to a text conversation that I had with one of my Fantasy Life coworkers on May 17th. It wasn't Freedman. It wasn't anyone in this room, but I'm going to quote myself here. This is after I saw on our ADP tool on Fantasy Life that has the consensus rankings that Jaydon Blue is RB40 when you combine all the consensus rankings from all the different sites. So here's what I texted this coworker. Is this real? Blue at RB40. And then he wrote back and confirmed that it was. And then I said, my suggestion is abort and let others have him. Blue is a scat back, and I don't think a good one. Sark's one of the best player callers we have in college football and didn't trust him enough to keep him on the field. You couldn't, and I talked about this situation a little bit. This is going to, in Dallas, again, they're going to be going with the two veterans. Phil Moffitt, the other guy they got, is a plotter. Jaydon Blue is a small scat back who's not super duper skilled. Fade Jaydon Blue where he is. He has fallen from RB40 to RB48 in the consensus rankings, here over the last month and a half, 2 months. My suggestion is he should be even lower than that.
All right, Freedman, do you see it the same way in Jaydon Blue?
I'm going to gently say hard disagree. I mean, I will say
gently hard. Okay.
Yeah. This far in the draft, I think this is where you can take the shots to the upside, right? If you're drafting in the first 5 rounds, you want guys with really high floor. But this late in the draft, I think it's fine to say the Dallas backfield is super murky. There's nothing special at all about Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. This could be a pretty good offense with an improved offensive line. And I agree with a lot of what Thor said there. But I will say, if one of these guys is going to have a big season, I feel like it almost has to be Blue. And the percentage odds of that happening could still be incredibly low. But he is fast, he is young, and even though he didn't get a lot of playing time at Texas, he was still productive with it, and he had 42 receptions, so he can be a pass-catching back. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to be someone who has a top 12 fantasy finish this year, but he could end up being someone who sneaks into the low-end RB2 range if he ends up becoming a starter. And if that happens, that has some value in the middle part of the season.
The Jaydon Blue last year, 47th percentile in the FBS in rushing grade. And again, some issues with the vision there. I don't think he can do in the NFL between the tackles. That kind of, I don't think he can. I mean, he couldn't do it at Texas. The pass down thing, that is a good point. That's his game. If it flowers out. Issue here, going back to the aforementioned thing about Javonte Williams, one of the better pass blockers we have in the NFL, and can they get the receiving out of be it him, be it Sanders? That's the one part of the game where Blue potentially could win, but again, you're going to have to shove Javonte Williams in his pass blocking off the field to do it. But as far as a bulk of touches, I'd be looking somewhere else. I don't think Jaydon Blue can handle him.
All right, Freedman, let's go to the quarterback position. We haven't talked about any quarterbacks yet in this show. Give me a quarterback that's going noticeably lower in Guillotine League drafts and tell me if the public is getting it right to fade this guy.
Yeah, I'm looking at Justin Herbert going about a round later in Guillotine Leagues. And I think this is the sharp side for the Guillotine League drafters. The Chargers, I think, are going to play slow. They're going to run the ball. And we've talked about this before on previous shows. You can get quarterbacks later in the draft. The quarterback position in Guillotine Leagues is not really all that important. And then you kind of ask yourself this question: am I going to be starting Justin Herbert in week 17? Am I going to be starting him in week 14? Answer is no. Probably not. Right. And so if that's the case, I would just rather wait on the quarterback position. And that is what we're seeing from Guillotine League drafters.
Concur. It's the most replaceable position in Guillotine Leagues because there's 18 teams. There's more than 18 good quarterbacks out there that can keep you alive week to week. I don't think there's a reason to reach for a quarterback, almost any quarterback, really, including Justin Herbert. My next player going a little bit lower in Guillotine Leagues. Let's talk it through. David Njoku going 11 spots lower in Guillotine Leagues and ESPN. The public has got this dead wrong. As mentioned earlier in this very podcast, the tight end position gets real thin, real fast. And for me, Njoku's the last guy in these tier of reliable tight ends that also has decent upside. Last year, once Deshaun Watson finally got off the field in week 7, and we never root for injury, except maybe here, Njoku was really good after they finally got Watson off the field. From week 8 forward with the other quarterbacks that the Browns trotted out, he was tight end 6 in PPR scoring, tight end 4 in utilization rank, and number 1 in end zone target percentage, David Njoku. And I'm not sure how much this is going to translate, but when Joe Flacco had those final 6 games 2 years ago as the Browns starter, Njoku was great. He averaged 9 targets, 6 receptions, 81 yards, and 0.7 touchdowns per game. Went berserk with Flacco then. Maybe it happens again here now. None of Cleveland's other 5 quarterbacks, they got 6 quarterbacks on roster, look remotely ready to usurp Flacco. He is going to be the guy here. Friedman, I think you're with me on this one, that the public's got it wrong, waiting on Njoku.
Yeah, 100%. I think Guillotine League drafters especially should be aggressive on going after Njoku. And, to your point about the projections and how good David Njoku has been without Deshaun Watson. So that's in the projections that we have this year. I mean, man, I look at the rankings that we have at Fantasy Life, and it's broken out by tiers, looking at it positionally. So Njoku, he's not in tier 1. He's not with McBride, Bowers, Kelsey. He is in that tier with LaPorta, Hawkinson, Kelsey, and Andrews. But routinely, he tends to be the last of those guys who's drafted. So I already love that because I feel like I'm getting a guy at a value within his tier. But man, in terms of the projections, he's actually more in that tier 1 class in terms of where we have him because of what he was able to do with Flacco and what he was able to do without Deshaun Watson over the past 2 years. So very much in the camp with you of liking David Njoku.
Yep. He's like my fail-safe guillotine tight end. If everybody else is gone, I'm taking Njoku and I'm not messing around because I feel like that's a guy I can go to war with potentially all season. And there aren't very many tight ends like that. Thor, let's stay with the tight end position. Chicago rookie tight end Coulson Lovelin going later in Guillotine League drafts, maybe just shying away because he's a rookie. Do you think the public's got that right or wrong?
I think the Guillotine Leaguers got this one wrong. I think Coulson Lovelin should be going a little bit higher than he's going on the ADP. I think he was tight. It was like 14, something like that. I think it is 14. I think, again, I think that's a little bit light. I understand why this is happening because it's difficult to think through Chicago, especially their slot position, slot and tight end, right? You have the two boundary receivers are set there, but between the inline spot and the slot, you have Komet, you have Luther Burden lingering, and then you have Lovelin. I would suggest to people that the safest of those 3 is Coulson Lovelin. He's the one who can play both. And as far as the receiving utility, he is a better receiver in the slot than Luther Burden is right now. Luther Burden, you have to manufacture all of his touches within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, was one part that I found odd of Ben Johnson choosing him, because people were doing like he's taking him because it's going to be as Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's like, Amon-Ra St. Brown can run routes, and even in college he could. The question with him was his athleticism. That's where he got nitpicked in his draft process. Luther Burden doesn't win downfield. It's the poor man's Percy Harvin thing with Luther Burden. And he sort of started slow in camp as well. I think Coulson Lovelin is going to grab a hold of that job. And then in addition to getting some of the inline work, he's going to be on the field a lot. But I think he's going to become one of the top targets for Caleb Williams right away. In the same way that early in his career, Lamar Jackson began to lean heavily on Mark Andrews as the big slot with the enormous levers who create separation. And if you get it anywhere within the Indian God radius of his catch radius, how big that they can extend out. He was coming down with that ball and was gonna move the chains. That's Coulson Lovelin here. Coulson Lovelin, 3.4% drop rate last year in college football. That's utterly elite. Saw him over and over again turn incompletions into completions. He's also a guy who is comfortable on extended plays when the quarterback starts scrambling around, breaking off his route and sort of cleverly moving with the quarterback, find himself in open space. Caleb Williams loves to do that. I think that's a quirk of Coulson Lovelin's game that needs to be mentioned as well. Coulson Lovelin was 7 of 7 on targets, 20-plus yards downfield in 2023 when he was playing with J.J. McCarthy on the national title Michigan team. That's a guy who goes down and he can get it, but he also creates separation short and intermediate. Last 2 seasons in the FBS, Coulson Lovelin, 93rd percentile in separation rate. And he got doubled quite a bit because he was the one dude that Michigan had that was the real difference maker as far as a weapon, as a pass catcher. Coulson Lovelin is really, really good, and I think he's going to be used right away by Chicago. I think he's going underdrafted right now.
Freedman, you see it the same way on Loveland? It's usually this is more often than not rookie tight ends take time to get better. What do you think about Loveland?
I think he's going late enough in the draft where I'm fine
Mhm.
drafting him based on his upside. I think he has upside that a lot of other guys in his range don't have. Now, I'd say sort of the median projections, I'm a little less optimistic because there are just a number of guys there in Chicago, especially Cole Kmet,
Yep.
who still annoyingly is going to get playing time. So maybe right away for Coulson Lovelin, it doesn't happen. But by the end of the season, he's actually someone who's playing at a really high level.
Yep, I could see it working out that way, and that does worry me from a guillotine standpoint. And just being a first round tight end doesn't automatically mean you're going to start hot. I mean, if we go back, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts gave us yards and not touchdowns. David Njoku, OJ Howard, Evan Ingram, Hayden Hurst, Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, all first round tight ends that did very little or were very inconsistent in their rookie year. This one's I'm a little bit nervous, but it maybe you're right, late enough. Now, the connective tissue between Coulson Lovelin and Detroit tight end Sam LaPorta, the next guy we're going to talk about, is Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson got Sam LaPorta on a 10 touchdown rookie year,
Yep.
which would support Loveland's case to go here and that he could be safe for guillotine. Tell me about Sam LaPorta, Freedman, a player who is going lower in Guillotine League drafts than he is in standard leagues.
Yeah, going about a half a round lower on Guillotine. And I think that's the sharp side here. And I hate to say, like, I don't like talking about guys I'm fading in general because it's setting me up to look like a moron when those guys smash. And
Yeah.
I don't like saying anything bad about Sam LaPorta because I think he's an awesome player. And I also like that he, went to University of Iowa. And I know Thor loves those Hawkeyes.
Oh,
But
yeah.
But I got to say, LaPorta is on my fade list this year. I have him projected as the tight end 7, and in most leagues, he's going as the tight end 4. So he's at the top of the tier 2 tight ends in ADP. So that just kind of, for me, makes him naturally less attractive than the other guys in his cohort. And then you look at that Lions offense, which could regress this year without Ben Johnson as the play caller. And then you just look at all of the other playmaking talent that is in that offense. The wide receivers, obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams, and then the running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. It is just hard for everyone to get the production that they need to meet expectations for their ADP. So Sam LaPorta, I think he's a good player. It's just the circumstances around him where I think it's going to be hard for him to meet or really exceed his ADP expectations.
And one thing on that, just to piggyback off that, the drafting of Isaac Tesla in the 3rd round. Now the Lions have 3 legitimate receivers, and also 3 legitimate receivers that can play in the slot. Right? I mean, they're interchangeable guys. You can move them out. Tesla has the athletic profile and the frame of a boundary receiver in the NFL. The interesting thing, though, is he's for sure raw. It's why he fell to round 3, despite his physical measurables. But he last year at Arkansas, in the last 2 years at Arkansas, he functioned as a big slot that they would send down the field and do that sort of stuff. You wonder if there's going to be Sam LaPorta going to be deprived of slot work more this year because of the constitution of that wide receiver room, and because they now have 3 legit. And Lions fans might argue that they have 4. A couple of those other guys, but they really like those top 3 guys. All of them can play in the slot. If that can find LaPorta to inline, think about his rookie year when LaPorta was going off. How many of those quick slants he got when he was deployed in the slot? Yeah. Really difficult to get through him, get through his back. He gets the inside leverage, just put it on his hands. It's a free completion, right? If he's not out there in the slot, and it's mostly inline work this year, it's another thing that goes to what Freedman's talking about.
And just to follow up on what Thor,
go ahead.
Sorry, just follow what Thor said right there with the addition of Isaac Tesla. This makes me think a little bit of the 49ers offense in previous seasons when they had so many playmakers there on offense that it was hard for any of those guys really to exceed ADP. Just so much talent, especially now with Tesla there, who might steal some of the snaps in the slot. I think that's a great call out by Thor. That's something I hadn't really thought about, but that could affect not just like the way that he's positioned, but the opportunities downfield that we could see LaPorta getting. So yeah, I think it's just too much talent in that offense for all of those guys to eat.
Our final 12th player that the public is treating differently. They're fading Baker Mayfield in guillotine leagues more so than they are in standard leagues. I think the public's got it right here. And it's not that we don't like Baker Mayfield and the opportunity here, but I'm never drafting Mayfield. I'm not drafting Joe Burrow. I'm not drafting Patrick Mahomes. That tier of really good passing quarterbacks in Guillotine specifically, who are not also quarterbacks who can run. They don't bring you the dual safety that you get from the rushing quarterbacks who have a way to meet that Guillotine League floor, either on the ground or through the air. But you still have to pay an expensive price for them, whether it's Mayfield or Mahomes or Burrow. There's, again, as we mentioned earlier, there's just too many viable passers, more than 18 of them, unlike tight end. And by my count, I'm ready to go to where 24 different quarterbacks. By my rankings and where my head is, I've got 24 guillotine reliable quarterbacks. I, like the public here, I don't need to spend real equity on Baker Mayfield. What do you think on this one, Freedman?
Yeah, 100% agree. And a follow-up with just thinking about the offensive environment. The Buccaneers are now on their fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years.
Yeah.
And Josh Grizzard, he's never called plays before. Like
Right.
Dave Canales was good enough in that role to get an NFL head coaching job. The same thing with Liam Cohen the year after him. What we have seen out of that offense the past 2 years, we can't just assume automatically we're going to get that again. We should not assume that a guy who has never called plays at any level is going to call plays automatically well enough to where next year he's going to be an NFL head coach. So just kind of in that offensive environment, we should expect some regression.
And we care a lot about September and the loss of Pro Football Focus's top-ranked pass-blocking tackle, Tristan Wirfs, for likely, the first 5 weeks of the season or so. That's, that could be a real hindrance for guillotine use for Baker Mayfield as well. This has been a blast. Thor, Freedman, this has been awesome. Thank you for all the work on this. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'd like to remind you, you can play Guillotine Leagues 3 different ways at guillotineleagues.com. You can play for free in a free league if you just want to test the waters a little bit. If you want to play for cash and your state allows it, you can do that as well in paid contests at guillotineleagues.com, or you can play a private league as well. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next Tuesday for more of Chop, the Guillotine League Podcast.